requires the National Treasury to submit the Budget Policy Statement, BPS, to Parliament by 15th February each year. In this regard, I wish to inform the House that, in compliance with the said provisions of law, the Cabinet Secretary of the National Treasury for the National Treasury and Economic Planning has submitted the 2024 Budget Policy Statement, the 2024 Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy, and the attendant documents. Before permitting the Leader of the Majority Party to lay the BPS and the debt strategy on the table of the House, allow me to guide the House on the next steps to be taken. Honorable members, Standing Orders 232, 5 and 7 provides as follows, and I quote, Number 5, upon being laid before the House, the budget policy statement shall stand committed to each departmental committee to consider and make recommendations to the Budget and Appropriation Committee within 7 days of committal. 7, within 14 days following the tabling of the budget policy statement, the Budget and Appropriation Committee shall table a report in the House for consideration in accordance with the provisions of Section 25(7) of the Public Finance Management Act. It is therefore expected that immediately upon being laid, departmental committees will forthwith commence consideration of the BPS in accordance with their respective mandates and submit their reports to the Budget and Appropriation Committee. Thereafter, the Budget and Appropriation Committee will table its report on the BPS to the House within the set timelines. Honorable members, order, Honorable Opio. Honorable members, I also wish to remind the House that the consideration of the BPS ought to be preceded by consideration of the debt management strategy. Of note, a resolution of the House on the debt management strategy sets the appropriate limit on proposed domestic and foreign borrowing for the next financial year. For clarity, Standing Order 232A, 4 and 6 provides that, 4, within 10 days following the tabling of the debt management strategy, the Public Debt and Privatization Committee shall table a report in the House for consideration. 6, the House shall consider the report of the Public Debt and Privatization Committee on the debt management strategy before considering the report for the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the budget policy statement. I therefore urge the Public Debt and Privatization Committee to expedite consideration of the 2024 debt management strategy in order to clear the way for the consideration of the BPS. I will now allow the Leader of the Majority Party to lay the 2024 budget policy statement and debt management strategy. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, February 15, 2024. 1, the budget policy statement. 2, the 2024 medium-term debt management strategy. 3, the medium-term revenue strategy for the financial year 2024-2025, financial year 2026-2027, and 4, the 2024 budget policy statement, non-financial indicators for the financial year 2024-2025, and the medium term. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Asante. Zamu inayofuata mbunge wa Mombasa, Mheshimiwa Zamzam.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Na mimi niweze kuchangia mjadala wa leo. Mheshimiwa Spika, pesa ambazo zinakusanywa kwa wananchi, leo nimepata kuelewa kuwa ni bilioni 63 ambazo zimekusanywa kwa housing levy. Hizi pesa kwanza, mahakama ilivyobandua mambo ya housing levy, hizi pesa zinafaa ziregeshwe kwanza kwa wananchi mpaka vile mahakama itakapoamua. Nafikia wamepeleka rufaa, tuelewe kuwa itakuwa namna gani. Mheshimiwa Spika, nyumba zimejengwa hata Mombasa, tumeona watu wakatolewa katika nyumba zao Pakistan, wakaambiwa nyinyi ambao ni maskini, nyumba zikijengwa hapa mtakuwa nyinyi wa kwanza kupawa hizi nyumba. Mheshimiwa Spika, mpaka leo wakazi wa Pakistan nyumba zimetimia, na mimi nilisikia yule ambaye alikuwa amepewa hii contract akisema kuwa mikono yake imefungwa. Aliomba kabisa, nikisikia na masikio yangu, akawa anaomba, nasema basi tuwape hawa watu waliotoka katika hizi nyumba, tuwape kwanza nafasi ya kuingia. Hawakuweza kuregeshwa pale, Mheshimiwa Spika. Nyumba zile zauzwa milioni 7, milioni 5. Mheshimiwa Spika, tusifanye mambo ya danganya toto. Ukaweza kumdanganya mama mboga na yule muuza viazi na yule mwenye kusukuma mkokoteni kuwa hizi nyumba zitakuwa nyumba zao, Mheshimiwa Spika, kumbe tunawahadaa wananchi. Mheshimiwa Spika, mambo ya ujenzi wa nyumba nafikiri yalianza kule mwanzo. Hata wakati wa Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta aliweza kufanya sehemu hapa upande wa Kibera, upande huu mwingine. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka nimpongeze Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta kwa sababu watu walioingia pale ni wale watu waliokuwa wametoka katika yale manyumba wakati yanabomolewa. Na wakapewa hizo nyumba, wanalipa 2,500, 3,000 mpaka watakapomaliza wachukue zile nyumba. Lakini kwa sasa mambo yanaendelea ni hujuma, Mheshimiwa Spika. Nyumba za bomolewa, kwa mfano juzi wamebomolea watu wa Changamwe zile nyumba. Lakini hata ile notice, tunajua pengine nyumba zingine ni za kwao. Hata ile notice pia kupatia mwananchi imekuwa ni ngumu, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi ningependa kiongozi wa wengi alioleta mjadala huu atuelezee huyu mama mboga, huyu bodaboda anashinikizwa vipi ndani ya mambo ya housing levy wakati ambapo hayuko kazini. Wale ambao wanafanya kazi ndio ambao wanakatwa hizi pesa. Je, huyu mama mboga ataingizwa vipi pale? Aweze kutuelezea hapa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni dhahiri kuwa wafanyakazi wa serikali wengi walikuwa wamechukua pesa ili kuweza kuchukua loan kuweza kujenga zile nyumba zao, na wana manyumba yao tayari. Ni dhulma kubwa wao kukatwa sasa tena pesa za housing levy wakati ambapo yale mapeni hawawezi wakatumia wao, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, serikali na mashamba mengi sana. Hata pia wananchi pia wengine maskini wana mashamba yao, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kama serikali kweli inataka kujengea mwananchi nyumba, mbona wale ambao wanakaa kwenye nyumba ya matope katika mashamba yao wasiende kule wakawajengea nyumba za kisasa? Wawaambie sasa mtakuwa mwalipa 2,200 mpaka mmalize, lakini muwe katika nyumba ambao ziko thabiti, Mheshimiwa Spika. Lakini yale ambayo tunaweza kushuhudia ni uvunjaji wa majumba, kunyang'anya watu mashamba yao, kudhalilisha Wakenya. Wakenya wanalia huku nje, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na mimi nataka niulize swali moja tu. Kwa sasa Kenya ina deni ya trilioni 11. Na tumemsikia juzi Mheshimiwa Rais akisema kuwa madeni yamekuwa mengi, kulipa inakuwa mtihani. Wewe una deni linalokusumbua. Kwa nini uchukue pesa tena uende kuweka kwa vitu ambavyo Wakenya hata hawana haja nazo? Wakenya wakipiga kura walitoka ndani ya majumba yao, hawakutoka msituni, Mheshimiwa Spika. Haya mapeni ambayo anachukua kujengea majumba, Mheshimiwa Spika, alipe deni tumuelewe, anachukua lakini analipa deni, Mheshimiwa Spika. Sio madeni yanazidi kukua, wananchi wanalia, pesa zao zinakatwa. Kwanza ile fuel levy 16%, hiyo ilikuwa inatosha kufanya haya mambo yote, kwa sababu alikuwa ameenda extreme. Mheshimiwa Spika, tusizungushane huku na huku 10 kibaten, Mheshimiwa Spika. Wakenya wamechoka na goji kirba goji, Mheshimiwa Spika. Wakenya wanataka Mheshimiwa Rais aweze kuongeza production, Mheshimiwa Spika. Ukiweza kuingia kwa mshahara wa wananchi, mwenyewe wana madeni chungu nzima.
Haya, kiongozi wa walio wengi ako na hoja ya nidhamu.
Asante Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, kwa hoja ya nidhamu, najua kuna mswada wa kuongea mambo ambayo kwa lugha ya Kimombo tunasema relevance. Na nasikia mheshimiwa yale mambo yanayohusu hoja iliyomo mbele yetu. Nimesikia mheshimiwa Zamzam akiongelea fuel levy, na kwa mambo ya manyumba sijui fuel levy ni gani hiyo. Labda mheshimiwa Zamzam atuelezee hii fuel levy ni gani. Nimesikia akiongea mambo ya order za koti ambazo ziko Changamwe ambazo hazihusu mswada. Madam Speaker, naomba tu mjulishe mheshimiwa Zamzam.
Patia mheshimiwa Zamzam dakika moja atakujuza.
Mheshimiwa,
umetaja kodi tofauti.
Mheshimiwa kiongozi wa wengi, ikiwa mwalimu alikuwa anafunza darasani na hukumwelewa, hiyo si shauri yangu. Yule mzazi wako alokulipia school fees atakuuliza ukifika nyumbani, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, hizi zote ni ushuru zinazokatwa wananchi. Kitu ninachosema, kwa nini uongeze ushuru mwingine katika ushuru ambao ulishakata zamani? Tumia ule ushuru uliokata 16%, fanya haya mazagazaga yote ambao wataka kufanya. Kwa sababu Wakenya tayari washadhulumika katika ile 16%. Kwa nini tuje tuwafinye tena na housing levy wakati hata bodaboda hajui mambo ya mshahara ni nini, mama mboga hajui mshahara ni kitu gani? Maskini ya Mungu, nimeona wameingia mpaka vibanda, sijui itakuwaje Kenya. Ukitaka serikali ama taifa lako liende kwa uthabiti, Mheshimiwa Spika, punguza ushuru, zidisha mazao. Ukizidisha mazao, Wakenya watakuwa na furaha ya kukatwa ushuru, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na mimi napenda kuelezea wenzangu mlioko upande ule. Najua wengine pengine wana shida zao nyingi. Na mpaka wanakuwa kama vile wajua maiti akiwa na inzi mfeta mpaka kaburini. Mimi nataka kuambia, mutaogopa pengine zile shida zenu mlizonazo, mwataka msaidiwe kule juu, lakini mkirudi kule chini kwa wananchi mutapigwa makatafunua, mutaenda kulilia na shida zenu kule chini. Ni wakati jumba hili lisimame na wananchi wa Kenya. Ni wakati jumba hili liweke misingi thabiti ya kuweza mtetea mwananchi wa kawaida. Ni wakati jumba hili, uko kwenye serikali, uko kwenye upinzani, lakini simama na watu wako, mwambie rais, hii housing levy imezidi sana. Mheshimiwa Rais, tunakuomba basi ile uliochukua ile 16%, fanya huko maneno yako, lakini haya mengine jamani, mhurumie mwananchi wa kawaida. Kila mahali, Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiona kiongozi wa taifa anakwenda kila mahali kisha anazomwa, si ishara nzuri, Mheshimiwa Spika. Ni ishara kuwa Wakenya wamechoka. Ni ishara kuwa Wakenya wanahangaika, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na mimi sisemi kwa kuchukia, nasema kwa kutengeza. Kwa sababu leo kesho Mheshimiwa Rais akienda kukaa kando peke yake, atasema Mama Zamzam alisema ukweli. Nyinyi wenzangu ndio mnaonidanganya, mnazidi kundidimiza, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi naongea kama mama ambaye niliweza kuuza sambusa, naongea kama mama ambaye niliweza kufanya kazi kama housekeeper kule Saudi Arabia, Mheshimiwa Spika. Sisi hatujui mambo ya mshahara, kukatwa housing levy, hatujui kuendaje. Kwa hiyo wasitumie majina ya mama mboga, wakatumia majina ya mvuta mkokoteni kudhulumu wale wafanyakazi ambao tayari katika mishahara yao wakati mwingine inasoma zero salary. Mheshimiwa Spika, wananchi na wabunge wenzangu, mwambieni rais ukweli. Mambo enda yombo, mambo kangaja, huenda yakaja. Kenya yadidimia. Musiingize president mahali pabaya, waheshimiwa wenzangu. Hii mambo imekwisha hapa. Hatuoni mama mboga, hatuoni mvuta mkokoteni, tunaona daktari anayedhulumiwa, tunaona mwalimu anayedhulumiwa, tunaona Wakenya wanaodhulumiwa na wanasikia uchungu. Na waombeni, mambo ya housing levy imekataliwa kotini. Jamani, mengine tukubali yaishe. Koti kishasema, mlivyopewa uongozi sisi tulikubali akaisha. Na sasa hii housing levy imekataliwa, kubalini yaishe, tuweze kujenga Kenya kwa furaha na upendo bila tax nyingi. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Aya, asante. Nafasi mwende Mheshimiwa Paul Nzengu, mbunge wa Mwingi Kaskazini.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. From the onset, I want to say that I have some issues with this bill. First, because I think the way it has been structured and the living that has been incorporated in this bill are not supposed to be levies as such, but I think it shouldn't be money that is contributed to a trust or to a fund in the same manner that NSSF is contributed, so that once you've done contribution over years, you can be able to claim back your contribution either in the form of a house or in the form of the savings, just like NSSF does. Because then the question goes, then if we are going to contribute monies and then people are going to apply for loans, these loans are going to be paid back. These loans are going to be paid back. What happens to the initial capital that has been contributed? Does it mean that the government will then divert that money to some other uses? That is not being informed by this bill. So I think I want to ask the proponents of this bill to look into that. Madam Speaker, I am aware that small business people are going to close down, because then already they are struggling to pay the salaries, and now a burden has been added onto them to match the levy for the employees. Already people are struggling with the burden of paying that small salary that they have been paying, and now an extra 1.5% has been incorporated. So that means an increase into the salary that they are paying. The other issue, Madam Speaker, is on the issue of the eligibility to access to this housing. For example, when you go to the definition, the social housing unit with a plinth of that much, it's targeted a person whose monthly income is below 20,000. I'm wondering where in Kenya, when you have an income of 20,000, how you can save money enough to be able to pay a loan for a house. Those houses, the cheapest is going for around maybe 2.5 million, almost 3 million. How many years will it take for someone who has an income of 20,000, which income has to be distributed between competing needs of the family, including food and other basic needs? Madam Speaker, I want to go very fast to the board. The board is constituted to be able to distribute money to different groups of different implementers of the objective of the bill. The board is supposed to give 30% to National Housing Corporation, supposed to give 30% to Kenya Slum Upgrading and Low-Cost Housing and Infrastructure Trust Fund. It's supposed to give 36% to the Ministry of Housing, and then 2% goes to the collector, who in this case is KRA, and the administrator in this case, who is the board. Now I'm wondering, how is the board going to be able to even coordinate and control all these huge amounts of money that are going to be given to different bodies of government? And then all these bodies have got an administrative arm in their component as they implement the project. Why then do we duplicate administrative cost in 4 different bodies of government, when this money should have just been, if that happens? Because of course I oppose, but I know the tyranny of numbers will play against me. But even when that happens, why don't we have a centralized way of just remitting the money direct from Treasury to the implementers? Why do we have to break it down into 3 different implementing agencies? And that is also going to impact on the cost of implementing the project. Madam Speaker, I want to take you to the CEO, the qualification of the CEO, which is clause number 21. If you read clause number 21(2), a person qualifies to be appointed as a chief executive officer if that person has at least 10 years experience in managerial capacity in affordable housing matters, finance, investment, or banking sector. I'm wondering why this has been deliberately left amorphous. Because before you have experience, you must have requisite academic qualification. And therefore, if we are talking about a CEO of a technical organization, that CEO must be a technical person. In this case, must be an engineer, must be an architect, must be a building economist, so that you understand what is involved in building. Buildings have components like foundations. All buildings are based on a strong foundation. And if you give a quirk, because you know when you say that is only experience that is required, there is no academic qualifications that are preferred, then what we are saying is that anyone who has experience does not necessarily have to have an academic qualification. Then it means that you can employ anyone as long as they have been managers. They could have been managing a brewing company, or managing a hotel or club, whatever it may be. So I think, Madam Speaker, I want to say that if this will happen, that we are going to go ahead and pass this bill, the qualification of the CEO must be a technical person who has technical qualification over and above experience. And I want to refer you to the section on corporate secretary, for example, on clause number 26, 1. There shall be a corporate secretary to the board who shall be competitively recruited and appointed by the board. A person shall be qualified to be appointed as a corporate secretary if that person holds a degree from a university recognized in Kenya. So why are we silent on this qualification on the matter of the CEO? I think I'm clear on that one. And then, Madam Speaker, I will go to the question of eligibility. On eligibility, for example, in clause number 31, 2D, on the eligibility, there are, apart from all what they have said above there, such other information as may be determined by the relevant agency. Why are we leaving the agencies to be the one to determine? If we have a criteria of how people should qualify to benefit from this fund, then the criteria need to be set out in this bill so that we don't leave it open for abuse by the relevant agencies that have been mentioned here. Madam Speaker, I submit. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Kasarani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And from the onset, I rise to support the Affordable Housing Bill. And as I rise to support, I want to just make it known to the House that this is actually the first time you are hearing my voice. And I'm going to stick to the subject at hand, even though this is supposed to be my maiden speech. So I want to remind all the honorable members that I was elected as an independent candidate. Why I bring that up is because I did not have the luxury of having a national manifesto. But I read both manifestos from Kenya Kwanza and from Azimio. Both manifestos agreed on the need for housing. They agreed that it is a fundamental human right. They agreed on the rate of population growth and the migration to the urban centers. And they agreed that in Kenya we require approximately 250,000 new units per year. So there are two things that we must recognize from this fact. Kenyans agree that there's a need for housing. The question is on how this is going to be implemented. I also happened to be in the housing committee, and we went around the country, and I must say that must have been the most advanced public participation exercise I have seen. Kenyans agree that there's a need for housing. The place where there's divergence is on several issues which can be cured and are already being cured by amendments to this particular bill. The first issue was the affordability of these houses. And most Kenyans really lamented on the fact that there was a deposit that was required to actually get access to the particular houses. That has already been cured in the amendments. And that's why I beg honorable members to please go through the committee report, because most of the issues that are being raised today have been addressed in that report. Most of the other issues on allocation of the units, fairness in allocation, and job creation have been cured again with amendments. How have these been cured? It is by ensuring that wherever these units are constructed, they benefit that local community. All those things have been addressed by amendments based on the public participation exercise that was carried out by the Joint Committee. I think the issue that arises for most people are purely speculative. Why I say that is that in Kenya we have a culture of public funds being stolen. But I think, Madam Speaker, we have to get to a point as a country where we have faith that some development is actually going to happen. Otherwise, we will remain in the same state, because we are now 60 years after independence. We have not been able to achieve Article 43 of the Constitution and ensuring Kenyans live in dignity. it is about time that as a house we rise up and support to ensure that at least within the 13th Parliament, some of the things we support, we can be proud later on and say we have eradicated some of the issues that have persisted since before some of us were born. The purpose of this particular bill, even though it's tackling only housing, some people are saying we should ensure, first of all, that people have adequate food, people have jobs. But in terms of social and economic rights, they must all be achieved simultaneously. We cannot say, since not everybody has a house, then they don't go to school, because everybody, all our children need to go to school. Education is also a socio-economic right. And therefore, we must strive and achieve all those rights at the same time. So we are already 60 years too late, Madam Speaker. And one of the things that we must ensure as members of this House, instead of opposing the bill, is bringing forth amendments of what we think should be changed. But both Azimio, Kenya Kwanza, and the people of Kenya agree that we need housing and there's a problem with housing. The public participation that we went through as a country, and everybody was watching, the number of jobs that have already been created on the sites that the affordable housing units are already taking place has not been seen before. I had one of the members say that we don't need these labor jobs, or we don't need temporary jobs. We need all jobs. My people in Kasarani need these jobs. I have to advocate for this housing, because we have a lot of people who live in rural areas who come to Nairobi to look for these jobs. They have nowhere to stay. It is a duty of the government to ensure that whether it's rental or it's houses that people can buy, they have access to affordable housing. I rise to support Madam Speaker, and I submit. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Funyula, Honorable Oundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to lend a voice on this very controversial and emotive subject of affordable housing. Honorable Speaker, when you look at the housing policy, sessional paper on the housing policy of 2015 of the Republic of Kenya, it's very clear on the need of housing. And indeed, when you read deeper, the definition of housing has never been a universal definition. Even when you look at the UN Habitat resolutions, the definitions of housing has never been uniform and, cross-cutting. Each community, each family, each society has got its own definition of housing. So that's the first point. That's the first point. That's the first failure or shortcoming of this particular bill. It assumes that the definition of a house for somebody in Limuru is the same for definition of a house for somebody from Wajir. That is the first point. We seem to be, it makes many of us believe that this particular bill is not about housing. It's about politics. It's about short-term gains. It's about things that do not add any value to the people of Kenya in totality. Honorable Speaker, I want to disclose here, I was one of the first MPs to submit the site for affordable housing. There are indications that they are coming to do those affordable housing in my constituency. And when I told my people on the ground in Funyula constituency, they have mocked me for the last 3 weeks, non-stop, on how misguided, misdirected, and mispriority. So that's the first issue we need to address. Honorable Speaker, the committee has talked eloquently how they did public participation all over the country, and where there was unanimity that this bill is good. They have talked about there are going to be amendments raised by the committee, and we want this to be the test case, so that public participation should not just for the sake of public participation. Public participation should not be a farce. Public participation should not be window dressing. would have imagined, I've not had opportunity to read the report, but I would have imagined that in the report they have a matrix on what the people said in each particular center they went for public participation. How they have synthesized those comments and submissions, and how have they arrived at whatever amendments they wish to make to this particular bill, so that we truly reflect the spirit of public participation. It's a terrible waste of public funds for us members of parliament to go all over the country. We listen to the people talk, and then we come using as some invincible force, invincible hand somewhere, we overturn the will and expectation of the people of Kenya. It's unconstitutional, it is immoral, it's unfair, and it's abuse of the office that has been conferred upon us. Honorable Speaker, they need to be very honest. There is a lot of concerns regarding this particular bill. The first one, and which has been the bone of contention, is the source of the funds to implement the housing, the affordable housing, social housing, affordable market housing, whatever definition you give it. The issue of the housing levy, it has been a bone of contention, and the courts of law have pronounced themselves in respect to that matter. Trying to cure the issues raised by the court of law by including clause 4, 2B, whereby we are talking now to look for other incomes. Honorable Speaker, we are just misleading the nation. We are just covering our heads in the sand. One, Honorable Speaker, the principle of taxation is that the cost of collecting and administering the tax must not be too high to an extent the tax collected, it becomes less useful, becomes not useful. Honorable Speaker, I do not know what mechanism will the KRA, the collector, use to collect the levy or any contribution from a mamboga, from Modaboda's rider, the sale of illicit brews, any typical merchant who sells cereals, they are bedos in most of the communities where we come from. How will the cost of collecting that tax and administering that tax will simply, KRA will abandon that line of income and only concentrate on salaried people and those in formal employment. We are again going back to the discriminatory nature of the funds that have been, that was the basis of the court case. We have not thought about it. As the minority leader has stated, what is the hurry? What's the hurry? We want housing. There's no doubt about it. Any Kenyan you ask, even those ones who live in Lavington, would want to upgrade to go to Mudaiga. Even those who live in South Sea would want to upgrade to go somewhere else. There's no doubt about it. But it's the modality of getting the housing. Honorable Speaker, and we'll move this amendment, and as usual, we will let the tyrant of numbers carry their day. We need, Honorable Speaker, there is an attempt to cure the problem, and that is clause 38 of the bill. Clause 38 of the bill. Which says an eligible person may make voluntary savings with an agent for purposes of raising a deposit towards the allocation of an affordable housing unit. That is where the solution lies. Housing is personal. It might never be a priority to everybody. Many of our children will prefer hovering around our houses, even as they approach 30, but as they look to buy cars or to invest in the stock exchange. Many of us will get married. A man will move to a woman's house. You might do not need the house that you had until the day another competitor of the house comes to kick you out, which happens quite often. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to urge the majority side. Let's look at this thing from both a policy prescription point of view and realistic point of view, Honorable Speaker. Because at the end of the day, we are going to punish. Honorable Speaker, as I speak here, the reason I've stayed here all this long, and that's why I came here early, I have had several messages especially from the teachers of this country. I have several messages from typical employed people who are low-income earners that are already suffering, Honorable Speaker. Many of them are now going into negative pay slips. They had thought the relief that came from the courts was going to help them solve their problems. Some have already committed, Honorable Speaker, continuing to impose the tax as it is at this level. It's punitive, it is unfair, and we want to tell the government, no country has ever developed by overtaxation. No country will ever progress by heavily taxing a common mwananchi. We can still do housing, Honorable Speaker, affordable housing, institutional housing. We look for seed capital, be it 70 billion, be it 100 billion, we can float a housing bond. We have gotten money through Eurobond. The sovereign rating of the country is still good. We can raise that kind of money. So that becomes a sinking fund. In any case, Honorable Speaker, housing demand oscillates from one period to another. There is no guarantee that all the houses that we are rushing to produce, to dump into the market, will be uptaken, will be absorbed at a go. That's a fallacy. There's no economic theory supports that kind of argument. Honorable Speaker, it is important that we look at this bill soberly, devoid of partisan politics, and present to the people of Kenya something that they will always look at the 13th Parliament and look at it with posterity. The other technical issues, Honorable Speaker, are immaterial. They are minor. They can be resolved. The elephant in the house is the definition of the house, and secondly, the way of raising funds for the housing, affordable housing schemes. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Malava, Honorable Moses Injedi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also arise, Madam Speaker, to support this bill and thank the majority leader for actually coming up with this bill. Madam Speaker, personally, I'm so happy that I'm learning actually today that Azimio equally had in its manifesto the issue of affordable housing, which also Kenya Kwanza was having. Madam Speaker, what surprises me at this moment is why a member from this particular side of government, Parliament, can actually claim now that this affordable housing is not a need for Kenyans presently, and yet it was in their manifesto.
Majority Leader, what is out of order?
Speaker, I don't want to interrupt the Honorable Ijendi, but you can hear the laughter that is coming from the Honorable Atandi. He's laughing like someone who is in a bar, not in the house, and disrupting everybody. We can't even hear what the Honorable Ijendi is contributing.
Order, Majority
Maybe
Leader.
you could ask Atandi if he's not keen on listening to Ijendi to allow us to listen to him.
Order, Majority Leader, but Honorable Atandi has heard you in the Kamukunji there. Let us consult in low tones. Continue, Honorable Member for Malava.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I think what most of us have to look at is those of us who have an advantage of having a salary is really to consider our brothers and sisters who do not have any income and who are suffering in terms of living conditions. Madam Speaker, I remember when I began working, it was so difficult to get a house in Nairobi here because of the kind of cost that was being asked for in terms of rent. And Madam Speaker, I would visit some of my colleagues who had gotten jobs, and the kind of places they were staying in were so deplorable. So, Madam Speaker, I want to appeal to everyone in the country, particularly who is salaried, to just accept that for the income he's having, he is standing in an advantaged position where he can actually raise some money, just like we are raising money through payee, so that we can get houses that can actually cause our brothers and sisters to also live a decent life in Nairobi. Madam Speaker, what I'm also saying, I'm coming from a rural area. My constituency is in a rural area. But when you see what's happening, we are basically an agricultural constituency. Most of the farms currently are now being subdivided further and further to put up houses for the children in the home, and you find that this is affecting now farming. I believe with this kind of housing, if it takes root in the urban areas to solve the problem of living conditions in urban areas, then it also extends, for example, to a rural place like mine, then have also affordable housing in my town, Malava. I would expect in future now, these children in these families traditionally who have to inherit land from their parents, they can actually get houses in urban areas and leave farms for agricultural farming. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, I would really support this, that and every one of us, because after all, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza were having this, is only to support this, and if there are few amendments, we make the amendments. However, Madam Speaker, when I look at clause 4 of this bill, paragraph 2A, it says, when it comes to this levy, it shall be at the rate of 1.5%. And this A, it says gross salary of an employee or the gross income of a person received or accrued, which is not subject to the levy under paragraph A. Now, Madam Speaker, my only question is this. Supposing as an employee I have a salary of 100,000 per month, and then I've managed to develop a business whereby I'm earning almost 500,000 every month. Madam Speaker, who decides what to be levied? Who decides? Do they levy my salary or do they levy my other incomes? I think I would want that this bill can come clear on this, that it is me to decide or it is KRA to decide which one to levy. Madam Speaker, also, on the issue of penalty, that's clause 7. Madam Speaker, I'm finding this a bit punitive, that on the 9th day of the following month, if this money is not remitted, then there is a penalty of 3% of the unpaid amount. Madam Speaker, we know what Kenya is going through when it comes to salary payment. Even our own staff here in Parliament, sometimes there is also a delay in salary disbursements. So, Madam Speaker, I think we can look at this and not become so punitive as it is. Madam Speaker, finally, some persons were asking, why are we paying this money and yet we have an investor who is coming in, given land, develop, then finally we pay for it. But I've found an answer in clause 10, and which I would like Kenyans to know, which addresses this particular issue. This particular levy we are paying is to help those Kenyans who are not in a position to get money, to get some soft loans at low interest rate, where it can be even at 1%, so that they can actually acquire this particular loan and pay for this particular house. I'm also finding some comfort with this because finally, when this money, Madam Speaker, my brother here makes a lot of noise. I don't know how he was in his Form 4. Madam Speaker, also, I'm also happy with this bill because I'm also realizing that apart from the house itself, developing a house, is that this levy will also be used, the fund. The money will be used also to upgrade slums, to maintain, to do maintenance in slums, because, Madam Speaker, you get into some of these slums, they have no roads, they have no facilities like toilets. So I'm happy that this money will be coming from us who are able to help those particular slums, to improve those slums, so that people who are living in such kind of places, they can actually live a decent living. So otherwise, Madam Speaker, I support this bill 100%.
Honorable Member for Alego Usonga, Honorable Atandi.
Finally, Madam Speaker, let me begin by saying that I oppose this bill in total. And Madam Speaker, let me say that according to my understanding, the reason why this bill is here was primarily to correct the issues that were raised by the courts on the unconstitutionality of the affordable housing levy. But, Madam Speaker, this bill does not attempt to address those matters raised by the courts. For example, on the fact that housing is a devolved function, the bill merely mentions counties. It does not say anything much. The bill talks about, the only area where the bill is involving counties is where the Affordable Housing Board is formed. And in this board, Council of Governors is supposed to nominate one person into this board. That is the only area where counties are mentioned. On the allocation of funds, counties is not involved. There's nowhere where counties will be involved in implementing these projects. So, Madam Speaker, according to me, the bill still remains unconstitutional because that issue is not addressed. The other issue which I wanted to talk about is that most of my colleagues who have spoken from the other side are saying that this bill is supposed to answer the question of job creation, that these houses will give us jobs. Madam Speaker, this is the biggest fallacy and hypocrisy of the affordable housing theory. Because, Madam Speaker, I don't know where these jobs will be found. What I have seen going on in the country is that there are a few gray, yellow, and brown men from China and Turkey who are implementing these projects. I've not seen anywhere where Kenyans are going to be used to do these projects. In fact, Madam Speaker, the truth of the matter is that the motive of this affordable housing has not been really revealed to Kenyans. Kenyans don't understand what these all houses are all about. So, Madam Speaker, if the regime wanted to use this affordable housing program to create jobs for Kenyans, then they would have used another model. They would have used, for example, labor-based approach to development of housing, like what I have seen happening in Rwanda. Rwanda, when they build houses, they use locals. They only get experts. And they don't have to hire foreigners, to come and build houses, and then Kenyans become laborers. Madam Speaker, we cannot sit here and pass a policy or a law that will make Kenyans laborers to Chinese. And then we are busy shouting and saying we are creating jobs. Madam Speaker, the last time I checked, when the president was commissioning some of these projects, I saw hungry-looking Kenyans, on those sites. I don't even think they are even paid. You know how colonialism is being used, is going to apply in this affordable housing. Madam Speaker, let us get serious. Let us stop this argument that these things are going to give Kenyans jobs. If you are going to ask Kenyans to go to these mjengos and earn 100 shillings per day, and then you are a president shouting and saying, I'm creating jobs. Madam Speaker, this is the biggest fallacy that this House should never entertain. The other issue, Madam Speaker, that I want to talk about is the part 3, which is talking about the affordable housing levy. Madam Speaker, affordable housing levy in this section, employed Kenyans are supposed to pay 1.5% of their gross salary into this fund. I have not seen anywhere where other Kenyans who are not in employment are also paying. It's not here. Or if it is there, I should be shown. Because my understanding of the court decision was that this affordable housing was discriminatory because only employed Kenyans were supposed to pay into it. But how are you correcting that? Because you are still asking only employed Kenyans to pay. And Madam Speaker, all the employed Kenyans have spoken. They have said they don't have additional extra income to support this program. So if the people who are supposed to pay for it are saying no, why is this autocratic bill being implemented, being forced down the throats of Kenyans? Madam Speaker, I oppose this bill because it is forcing employed Kenyans to pay for something which they don't need. Personally, I don't need this thing. I'm employed. Many other people in my family are employed. They don't need this thing. So, Madam Speaker, this is an autocracy. This is dictatorship. And this House should never allow itself to be used to pass dictatorship policies. The other issue that I wanted to raise, Madam Speaker, is that Kenyans, it is true Kenyans may want houses. They may want affordable houses. But is it the most important priority? Because as a house, we need to, pass policies and laws that Kenyans want as a priority. In my view, I don't think this is a priority. Some people have sat somewhere and they've decided that we need to collect resources from Kenya, build houses and eat. In the end, Madam Speaker, this is going to be the biggest scandal in the history of Kenya. Bigger than Goldenberg, bigger than Eurobond, where the monies were borrowed and they never reached here. When Auditor General Ouko said that the Eurobond funds were stolen, some people didn't accept and didn't agree. I want to predict that this affordable housing is the biggest scandal, and it is meant to benefit a few people in State House. This is a fact which must be highlighted. And therefore, I want to stand with Kenyans and say that this is something that Kenyans must reject. We must reject it. And Madam Speaker, the MP for Mombasa, Madam Zamzam, should go into the records of history of this House as the most eloquent speaker on this matter. And that if you were not persuaded by the speech by Madam Zamzam, then you need to check yourself. Madam Speaker, there are certain aspects of this bill which I wanted to support. But after Madam Zamzam made her contribution, I am now opposing the bill in totality. Even my colleagues from that side, the Honorable Ichung'Wa could not sustain a point of order against her speech. So Madam Speaker, let this House make a resolution that this is not something that Kenyans need, and that all of us need to oppose it, because it is good for Kenyans not to be involved in supporting corruption by a few elements in government. Madam Speaker, I oppose.
Thank you, Honorable Irene Mayaka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to also add my voice to this particular bill, which I want to go on record that I oppose in totality. And Honorable Speaker, point number one, buying or purchasing a home is a very personal matter. And we need to understand that this is very personal. Honorable Speaker, this is like when you want to buy a bra. Because unlike when you want to buy a bra, when you want to buy other clothes, you can take them for fitting. You cannot do that to a bra. You are either size 38B or a size 34B. That is how personal it is when you're buying a home. Because it is said in this bill in Part 1, Sub-Article 3, that it gives effect to Article 43 of the Constitution in terms of accessibility and adequacy. When you're talking about the matter of adequacy, and you tell an individual who is used to living with 50 people in the same boma, that now you're going to live in a house, a one-bedroom house. How is this being adequate to the needs of the people? Madam Speaker, when you look at the pay slips of Kenyans, majority of the people who are working, they have already been deducted mortgage, they're being deducted all these other deductions, and then you're adding the housing levy, and yet that house, they will not necessarily own it. Honorable Speaker, we had the new Speaker. You told us about the fact that we get deducted VAT, and some people are deducted VAT even if they don't have children. But I would like to educate you that VAT is a deduction that goes into a wider basket. Housing levy is specific. It goes into a specific levy, and therefore you cannot compare the two. That is like comparing a tomato to a potato. It doesn't work like that. Honorable Speaker, I'd just like to give you a comparative analysis of other countries. We've had housing levy in Finland, in Italy, in South Korea, and in all these countries, which are more developed than we are, they've actually had to review how housing levy is being administered. In South Korea, for example, right now, the government is buying houses from private investors and then subsidizing them and then leasing them out to individuals. Secondly, in a place like Finland and Italy, people are advised to rent to own. So you're deducted money, yes, from your salary, but that money goes towards a home that you're already staying in, so you're renting to own, to eventually own that home. That is not what we are working with in this country. Speaker, I'd also like to just look at part 2 of subsection 7, where it talks about that one will be able to pay a penalty upon delays. Right now, we all know that we have delays in salaries, even for civil servants. Even NGCDF has not come through because the government says there's no money. So is the government going to actually deduct itself on these penalties if it fails to pay the civil servants on time? Is it going to penalize itself? Is that what is going to happen? Honorable Speaker, and I just want to say this, and this is because in clause 30 and 31, we have a very scanty criteria. You cannot tell me that for me to own a house, I have first to be a citizen of Kenya who is 18 years. Okay, so imagine a scenario where a couple of citizens of this country go to a place like Ngara and say they want those homes because according to the criteria on the bill, they qualify. They are Kenyans, they are 18 years old, so they qualify. What are you going to tell those Kenyans? Mr. Speaker, back at home in Nyamira, where they want to, like for example, have affordable housing in the town. For us who come from the Nyanza region, and maybe in Western Kenya, owning a home means you have a compound, it has goats there, iko na ng'ombe, it has a space. That is owning a home. You cannot tell a Kisii that they own a home by having a flat, some space up there in town in Nyamira. And you imagine that the people back at home, the elders, will respect you and say that you own a home. We need to tailor-make these solutions to people depending on where they live. If it's people who are in the villages, do not tell them about housing levy. If it's people in Garissa whose children are reading under trees, you cannot tell me you want to build for me a house and yet my children are reading under the tree. That is a government that lacks priorities. Honorable Speaker, as I finish, I just want to ask this question. Because I was nominated by my political party to represent workers in this assembly, I just want to ask, now that the courts declared housing levy unconstitutional, the workers who had been deducted, can they get their refunds? And the reason why I'm saying this is because even if, at the very worst, this is passed and it is declared constitutional, you cannot apply law in ultra vires. You cannot apply the law in reverse. Therefore, for all that time that Kenyans have been deducted this money, tafadhali turudishie wa Kenya pesa yao. I thank you.
Thank you. Next on the board. Now, I'm told the member for Homa Bay had her card malfunction, so this will go to her. Just give her the microphone where she is.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And I believe the ICT personnel will all be reviewing our gadgets before we come into sessions so that I'm not experiencing frustration, which I've experienced for the last 4.5 hours. But I thank you for understanding. Now, when I read through this proposed bill, actually all the schedules have gaps, and I would say that I support it is a total scam. And I want to start by saying, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this is a bill that as legislators in this House, we must stand to oppose until we are convinced beyond reasonable doubts in terms of implementation. A good proposal, which even Azimio had in the manifesto, as our minority leader stated. I want to say and talk from the perspective of a project plan. And I want to dismiss instantly. There is no project which is implementable to conclusion without definite parameters of implementation, clear framework, and sustainability, which is output of a project. In this affordable housing, there is nowhere that we are mentioning sustainability. So the technocrats were not involved in this. A few people with their own passion and quest and thirst that they want to fulfill sat down, coined, and put it on paper. And no wonder it is being sneaked in as a rush. As legislators who are representing the citizens of this country, We know very well that we are undergoing tough times in this country. Even the members of the legislatures in this house are finding it rough, because when we get our pay slips, they are zero, deducted. You can't even understand from where you are coming from and where you are heading to. Yet we are the representatives of the people. This brings me to the question, what about the common mwananchi who is not employed, is not even near Mama Mboga, who can sell even 1,000 shillings per day? I want to say that this kind of affordable housing that we are talking about today, in the objects of the Constitution, primarily, we are saying that fairness is not taken care of. And when we are talking about fairness in this country, when the Constitution is highlighting on fairness, there is no fairness even on the deduction of the employed. There is no fairness of other members of this country on how they are going to foot the taxes. Under the objects of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say that inclusivity, which is enshrined in our Constitution, is not factored in the framework of this bill that is proposed. Why am I saying so, Mr. Speaker, sir? When we are talking about Mama Mboga, the hustler nation, it is very clear, because I rise to represent, as the county MP of Homa Bay, the PWDs, there is nowhere they are mentioned. We want to say that even the inclusivity is not captured in this proposed bill, because at what point are the youths who are not employed, the women who are not employed, the PWDs who are there? So we are saying framework on inclusivity is missing in this proposed bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, it was very clear that this is a county bill. Yes, I agree. In the same Constitution, there is the interrelatedness of the county government and the national government. Mr. Speaker, sir, that is not clearly articulated in this proposed bill, because we are only seeing in the fourth schedule the aspect of the ownership and the board of management. We are sneaking in the CS, we are sneaking in the CEO, of whom I don't know the identification mechanism. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have 47 counties in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, the framework of identification of the pieces of land is not articulated. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are talking of a public participation which is purported to have taken place. We know the segments of a public participation. Was there adequacy in the notice being provided? Was there involvement of adequate stakeholder and inclusivity of the same? Was it at the local level of the beneficiary who's going to get it? We only saw a spotted flashlight TV, some people seated with good bottles of water somewhere. Are we talking of affordable houses for Mama Mboga, or we are just imagining of things which are not right? Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say that this house must hold and respect the court order. In regard of this was already stopped, it was important and necessary that we be firm as legislatures and arm of the government, so that we review what we want to bring in place. Because once we rush it, that we have to do this, then take it to the Senate House for corroboration, whatever, that is wrong. That is misleading, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to say that I also want to highlight that there is prioritization of needs. Why am I mentioning that, Mr. Speaker, sir? What is this rush of the affordable housing? Yet this country, as a country, I'm bringing on board the issues that the government should address. Education, which is key important. Right now, as I'm speaking, we know very well that our education is in a total mess. If we are a government that prioritizes needs of the Kenyan citizen, why don't we look into issues which are weighty, that when we tell the Kenyans that these taxes are going to go to this kind of development, it is going to improve us? Mr. Speaker, sir, we have issues of water and electricity. What is this rush of affordable housing? Teachers have gotten loans and acquired houses. People have built houses in various towns and go back home. You cannot cheat Mama Mboga. There is no framework on which Mama Mboga is going to acquire this house. There is no framework in which the unemployed border, the youth is going to acquire this house. This is not a priority. There are households who are living in a grass-thatched house, but they are doing business and affording to take their children to school. Let us support them. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying it will be wrong, it will be illegal for this house to accept and propose this bill and pass it through unless we want to take Kenyans into rush. Now, when you're talking of the people who are owning the steel companies in the industries, the big industries in this country, I want to count that the very few population of Kenyans owning those industries. When you walk around, even in town here in Nairobi, you'll find most of the industries we have owned by the Asians, we have owned by the Chinese. The Africans themselves are few in this. Who is going to import this timber from Congo? I want to urge this government to tap the underutilized resources from our counties. Bring in investors and pour in and look for grants to ensure that in as much as affordable housing is moving on, resources are revived so that there is sustainability and increased funding, and in terms of improving our cost of living and economic status. Go to Homa Bay, we have a lake. Bring us the industries. Don't open up fish ponds in places where there are no lakes, so that we have fish which is not fish, that we know very well was found in the lake. Let us have things which can sustain our locals from where they are. We have forests which can be undertapped. We have tourism. We have many things that we can do. Even the people who are employed in the private sectors, when you look at those people at lunchtime, they are very hungry. They have taken Getheri for 10 shillings with being underpaid. And then we are talking about, we want to build this immediately. We want to bring steel. We want to bring timber. Bring from where? And the Kenyan himself is unempowered. I want to say that this House must reject this until the process and framework of implementation is clearly put in place. When it is brought, we shall support, and we get that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
That is the MP for Homa Bay County. I hope Honorable Mandai noted that. The member for Kwanza.
I will not be as, excuse me, Mr. Speaker, sir. I think give me time also to contribute. Leader of minority or my friend.
Honorable.
And I want to do this.
Honorable Nyonyi, go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to say that first and foremost, we have also to see exactly what is happening around. And this bill, to me, I want to ask those who are opposed to it, let's actually enrich it. Let's come up with the corrections to be able to actually say this is missing, we need to add this and that, so can be able to pass this bill, because, Mr. Speaker, this is something that we have to see, we have to look at least outside the box. I want to say that for us to be able to do what we're supposed to do, first of all, we are talking about creation of jobs. I have a project in my constituency, and the other day, the Deputy President came and actually helped me in the fundraising. There were over 120 youths and women, what have you, doing that job. Casual workers. And I can tell you that casual workers were very, excuse me, Mr. Speaker, I don't need him to shout at me. You are out of order. So we are saying that they actually were very impressed, because what we are talking about is creation of the jobs. For those informal jobs, we have actually boys and girls out there who are actually professional in their own, the jobs for the rural area. Secondly, because from 1963 up to now, almost 60 years down the line, there's a lot of migration into urban areas. And somebody mentioned that. And they get my Form 5, Form 6, I came over here, and where I was staying, I can tell you, it was pathetic. Because there was no housing. So I think what we are doing, we actually, as members of parliament, we are trying to see if we can have dignified a way of looking at those who come in, who migrate to urban areas, and see whether we can be able to assist them. And I can tell you, recently I traveled to Angola, and I want to do that as a benchmarking, if you can well. It is that kind of housing project, and it was very impressive. I was told that actually people, the same way we are starting here is what has happened in Angola. We have housing issues, and actually you'll find the people are now living very comfortably in Angola. So all I'm saying is that for the creation of jobs and what have you, you'll find some people there supplying cement. We'll have people actually coming there supplying timber, as somebody mentioned. We'll have people supplying, like in my area, we come all the way to Thika to collect stones to take to Western Kenya because of that kind of a thing. And of course, we'll have multiple effect, and the economy will grow. So let's not look at the short-lived benefits, but the long-term benefits that somebody who actually is employed, he'll then of course have to get supplies of food, what have you. That again is a multiple effect. And that's how we can grow the economy. So all I'm saying is that we should not look at it on a short-term basis, and what am I going to benefit from this? We're looking at the long-term effect, and I can tell you, as an economist, I see this as a way of revitalizing our economy, a way of us making sure that the economy of this country comes back to where it's supposed to. Because today we are looking at the economy is doing so badly because there's no effect. There are no jobs. But this is a creation of jobs. You see, you give somebody 120 shillings or even 20,000 shillings after working for 1 month, that money is not going to keep it, it's going to use it, buy something else to be able to turn around the economy of this country. And I want to assure you members that this affordable housing scheme, to me, is one way of actually, after 60 years, we should not look around. You go around here town, see how our boys and girls, those who don't have jobs, who have jobs, they don't even know where to go. And so I think I'm asking the leader of the minority, and those are who are opposed to this, to come up with some issues, to come up with issues that can be able to enrich this particular motion, so I can pass it for the benefit of our Kenyans. It's not for your benefit or my benefit. It's for the benefit of the Kenyans, and therefore I think it's only fair that we look at it. And as I said, have time, those who are doubting, we can even ask the parliament to sponsor some of them to go to Angola. They had the same scheme. And I can tell you, I went around and I saw for myself, it's something that people actually, anyway, it's something that you can benchmark. Not that you don't have to go there, but you can see what is up. Angola, Mobutu. Yes. Okay? So I saw that and I was very impressed as far as I'm concerned. So down the line, I want to say that members of the parliament, let's pass this motion so that I can be able to see what we can do to benefit. It's not that somebody is going to benefit as an individual. Somebody is talking about corruption. I don't know how the corruption comes. The system that is there, if you want to look at it, let's look at it and see whether we can make correction and be able to support this particular motion. I want to support the motion, and please call upon those who have negative attitude, not because you are in opposition, it's going to benefit the other Kenyans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Githunguri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to oppose this bill. I will be consistent and I shall remain so. Not because I do not like the policies that are laid down by Kenya Kwanza government, but because I am in this house to pursue the interest of the people I do represent. And the people I do represent are people who have priorities, and the people that I do represent are people who understand the mathematics of making money from the farms and making their livelihoods better. Mr. Speaker, the spirit behind this bill was to dignify the way we live, was to make housing affordable and make housing accessible in line with the Kenyan Constitution, Article 43. Mr. Speaker, I am excited that the courts of Kenya found it worth to give a clear and sober direction over the existence of a law that over cited the need to align ourselves with the Constitution of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, when I speak about dignity, you can only be dignified if you are living in a house that the community where you live in appreciate as a home. A home where your in-laws can come in, can enjoy a cup of tea, can enjoy a cup of musik, can enjoy a cup of uji, and get an opportunity to enjoy sunlight. I do not expect that this block of flats that we are proposing we are going to construct in our homesteads are going to dignify our community lives. In fact, they are going to defranchise the cultural setups in our backyards. I cannot imagine my mother-in-law coming to my house in a 6th floor block and live opposite another neighbor who doesn't speak her vernacular and expect her to feel comfortable in such a setting if really you want to dignify me and dignify my people. We cannot come here to purport that we are dignifying people, and we are removing them from their cultural setup, away from what they can access for their cultural dignity, to bring them to a contemporary, modern understanding of what dignity is all about. Mr. Speaker, when I speak about dignity, I will be very excited as a member of parliament, specifically as a woman leader who has served in Kiambu County, and I understand Kiambu County very well. I will be excited if I could hear that we are dignified the people of Ruaboli slums in Kikuyu constituency, where majority leader comes from. I will be very happy to hear that we are giving all the people who live in Ruaboli slums, Kiambori, yes, Kiambori slums. Thank you, majority leader. I would be very happy to hear that the people who are living in Kiambori slums, all of them are going to be dignified, and they're going to be given these houses in the most affordable way for them, remembering that most of them living in the slums have no constant income. They are not employed. I'll be very excited if these houses are going to be given to the people who are living in Thika constituency in a Geshagi known as Geshagi Kia Madharau, meaning it is a village of indignified life. I will be very happy if these houses are dignifying those people. I will be very, very happy if these houses are dignifying the life of the people who live in Gashagi Kamaratadi. That is in a village of houses made of paper, nylon paper, in Lari constituency. I will be very, very happy. But looking at what has been done in the past, when this house tax and levies were introduced in this house, the houses that are being constructed, for example, the ones that have been constructed in Roilo, there is nobody from Gasogi Kamadharau can afford those houses. The deposit they are in, 400,000 per house, they cannot afford. So what dignity are we talking about here? Who are we dignifying? Mr. Speaker, when we speak about accessibility, we are only constructing these houses in the urban areas. How accessible are these houses going to be to the people who live in extreme corner of my constituency, for example, the people who live in Madhaja village in Gedega constituency of Githunguri County, sub-county? If we actually do the houses in Githunguri town, for example, how accessible are we going to align ourselves within the constitution? Because this is the spirit of the constitution. That is why I am opposing this bill. Actually, this bill, according to me, should not be called the Affordable Housing Bill 2023. It should actually, if we really are serious, we should call it the Affordable and Social Housing Bill 2023. And the social means accommodating those people living in the nylon papers houses, like I have explained, because that is the spirit of the Constitution. So I am happy because I have put in amendments. I hope those amendments are going to be considered on the floor of this house so that my contributions and my thoughts and other people's thoughts who are thinking like I am thinking can be put in place. Mr. Speaker, when I speak about affordability, I do not think that the concept of stone and cement is what is affordable to my voters. I do not think that the concept of cement and stones and concrete is what is affordable to somebody in Turkana. Why can't we then, if you are calling them affordable, use the most affordable materials that are available in the villages? Why must you force me to adopt your concept of concrete and stones and cement, and that is not affordable to me? That is affordable to you because of your income levels. It is not affordable to me. To the people of Turkana, who are used to making their houses using wood cut from the trees and the cow dung to smear the houses and look beautiful, to them, that is what they can afford in their backyard. Why are you going to introduce the concrete and stones in Turkana? And they are not affordable there. By the way, stones and cements are only affordable in Nairobi and Kiambu County, where we have quarries. You go to the coastal part of region, in the coastal region, there are no stones. Why are they designing for houses to use stones from Darugo quarries in Kiambu County? And trucks have to leave Thika or Roiro to go all the way to deliver stones in Kwale County, for example. Isn't this a business model for some people? So that is why I am opposing this bill. I have put my amendments on the floor. I hope they are going to be considered.
One minute, Honorable Muchomba. What's out of order, Honorable? Bye.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to a point of order on misinformation, because the coast region is known for the coral stone. And a lot of the houses in the coast are actually built on stone, coral stone. That's one of the most precious stones that is used for building. To say that the people of the coast actually enjoy staying in mud houses, they don't have building materials. We have. My constituency is a place called Tezo. Mombasa has been built by the stones from Tezo. It is a quarrying area. Better stones than those are thicker. Kwale itself has one of the best coral reef with the best coral stones. So
what's out of order?
Shomba is a very well-informed person, but she should not distort facts. Okay. She should not distort facts and misinform people. We have very good building stones. And our houses, almost every house in Kilifi now is built.
Thank you, Honorable Baya. I think the honorable member is.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Honorable, my friend, wanted to inform me, but he did not request me for permission to be informed, because I don't think I was out of order. So next time, don't misuse the standing orders. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, allow me to address the issue of land. I still would want to understand that this bill, because I've read it, it has not addressed how the government of Kenya is taking up public land. The legal framework around taking over pieces of land in our backyards is something that's still not addressed by this bill. No wonder I am not supporting it. You cannot come to my county and my sub-county and purport to take over public land to construct houses, land that was alienated for some project that serves the community. For example, in Githongori constituency, there is a proposal to take up land that was supposed to be used for our Mau Mau veteran memorial activities and cultural activities. And there is a lot of coercion happening so that that community can lose that land to affordable housing. I still feel this is not right. There is no right.
No. Allow her 30 seconds to finalize.
Thank you. Thank you for your consideration, Mr. Speaker. I still feel that there is no right inclusion of the legal approach on how the government, through this affordable social housing bill, is going to take over land that is supposed to be community land. And therefore, I oppose this bill, and I have put my amendment to see whether my concerns and the concerns of the people I represent have been captured in this bill. Thank you.
Minority Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to oppose this bill. And Honorable Speaker, right from the onset, it is important to say two wrongs don't make a right. And Honorable Speaker, the member for Kwanza was saying that we should try and improve on this bill. But there's no way to improve on something that is already flawed. Honorable Speaker, there is an issue of framework that was raised by the courts. I submit to you, Honorable Speaker, that we still have an insufficient framework in this housing bill. And allow me to demonstrate, Honorable Speaker. We have different forms of taxes and levies collected by the government. We have PAYE, we have NHIF, you have NSSF. Honorable Speaker, NHIF, there's a direct benefit to the person who pays that levy. The same thing with NSSF. You benefit from it. With PAYE and all income taxes is what we benefit from. We have teachers in schools. We have NGCDF whenever they decide to remit it, that goes down there to benefit. We have roads that are done. This is how we benefit directly from this PAYE. So how will this housing levy benefit the person who is actually paying this levy? If you don't change this issue, and I'm glad the chair is still here for housing, because we've had a side chat with him, and I respect the member for Murua Dikir, that I submit to him that this makes it will be another challenge for this bill, and when we go to court of law, they will set it aside. Why? Because you've not shown, you've levied a tax, but you're not showing how we are going to benefit. Honorable Speaker, there is the issue of, and allow me to speak of Embakasi West and Nairobi. And the leader of majority, and I don't know, he stepped out, he's asked us, the members of parliament, we should write and indicate the land where we're supposed to construct these houses. Honorable Speaker, I have a school with 4,000 students, 182 students in one classroom. I'm looking for land to build a new school. How will I convince the residents of that ward that I can set aside land to build houses that will be privately owned? And yet, in that entire ward, I've only got one public school. And this is the case all over Nairobi. We have an issue where we've built affordable housing, especially in Eastlands, Honorable Speaker. I'll be honest, we have slums where we have rentals going for 500. We have houses going for 1,000, 2,000 in Dandora, 3, 4, and as you accelerate all the way, you get to Buruburu, where you can afford to pay a house of 50,000, depending with your strength. Honorable Speaker, those are the affordable houses that we have in our constituencies. And what we need, Honorable Speaker, we need titles. We've built houses, we need them regularized. You cannot tell us to now come and build new houses. We have houses in Nairobi. We've built them already. Regularize them. Those are our affordable houses. We are okay. We don't need any more. We don't need any more. Those are sufficient for us. And let us remember, Honorable Speaker, the majority of those who are being paid salaries are here in Nairobi, Honorable Speaker. And if you look at the number of even houses being built here in Nairobi, it's unfair. So how will you convince all these people, where 60% of the GDP is here in Nairobi, and you're not even giving us that equivalent here in Nairobi? So we have a huge issue with that one. Honorable Speaker, let me remind my colleagues across the side, and I'm happy, Honorable Mbadi, because he might remind me. President Kibaki built houses in this Nairobi. He didn't impose a levy. They're here in Langata. President Uhuru built houses in Starehe. I wish the member of Starehe was here. They're here in Pangani. No levies were imposed. So it's not something new, and that's why as Azimio, we were willing to support. We had this in our manifesto because we knew we could do it without asking for any extra money. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to speak also about my constituency. Some of the areas you've been pointing out where you want to demolish slums and build them. We've had uprisings and all sorts of mandamano going on in Nairobi because nobody wants their houses to be demolished. So we submit to you that we do have a form of affordable housing. It might not be the best, but it's what Kenyans can afford right now. And finally, Honorable Speaker, because I will have quite a number of amendments that I will bring in a bit later on. Honorable Speaker, let me caution, based on how this criteria has been put here. Honorable Speaker, before I became a member of parliament, when I was an advocate trying out, then I was earning a salary of 20,000. I had the opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to apply for an affordable housing scheme that is here at Nyayo Estate. Honorable Speaker, if there is a place where there was a lot of corruption and you needed to know somebody, was that scheme. That is how you've exposed us in this new bill. And I want to urge you, and I'm saying the Honorable Owen Bai is really paying attention. I urge you to go to Nyayo Estate. Those affordable houses, as they were considered then, because about 700,000-800,000, see the people who own them. It is the wealthy people during that regime who own those houses there. They own 10, 15 houses. People who are cabinet secretaries, PSs, members of parliament, those are the people who ended up owning those houses there. The way this bill is crafted, Honorable Speaker, the criteria that it is a simple ID, it is so subjective. It means somebody somewhere will choose and determine who is to get a house. And that is it. It doesn't matter what you contributed, what you gave out. All that will not be considered. This might boil down to the tribe, skin of your color, the depth of your pocket, who you voted for, party, share ownership. All that kind of nonsense is what will be considered. And they will ignore the fundamental issue of what we as Azimio wanted to sort out by creating affordable housing at a low cost without adding a single shilling to the taxpayer. So I'm going to urge the chair of the committee, because we will have a bigger discussion during the third reading. Allow us to amend this bill, as your colleague from Kenya Kwanza, Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, said, and allow us to even delete each and every single clause here and redraft this bill afresh. And we do have the strategy. We do have the plan. Allow this issue to be a bipartisan issue where we can give you a better bill without adding a single shilling, a single tax to Kenyans out there. So, Honorable Speaker, in this current form, I apologize, I've not had a chance to look at the report of the committee because it came out at night, and I'm hoping some of these issues, we're going to look at them in depth. But, Honorable Speaker, the way it is, I'm sorry, but I cannot support this bill in its current form. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving the opportunity to discuss this. Mr. Speaker, I rise to oppose this bill because it is actually flawed. Mr. Speaker, this bill, the objective is to provide for affordable housing, to levy, put a levy, and to give a framework. It does none of those, absolutely none. Throughout the bill, there's been no indication on how these houses are going to be affordable, meaning it's cheaper than other houses in the market. You actually pay, you don't know you are going to get, and then you put a deposit of 10%, then you are given a house, and then you pay back the loan. That is standard. What is different from that? What is going to change them? And now you go and look at even what we call the frameworks. Just start with the definition. Affordable housing, not more than 30% of your income per month. We start to put figures. How are you going to actually ensure that it is not more than 30%? And then you go down, and the affordable houses are actually three types. Social housing unit for people whose income are below 20,000. Affordable housing unit which is between 20,000 and 100,000. Affordable market housing, which is over 100,000. When you say that, and you have put 30%, you have already actually said what that house is going to, the rent is going to be. In the market, is it really possible to have a law which is saying exactly what you are going to pay? I don't see how that will work out. So you have put a percentage, you have actually put what the income is, you've put it, that gives you the cost of the house. Can you really fix that? That is what has given us a problem for 10 years when we put a number, 2/3 gender rule. It's a number, and we are trying to get to reach it politically. We are doing the same thing with this bill. That is just not going to work. Then you go to the levy. We started by saying it was for employed people only. But of course, that is what the court didn't like, and then the court brought us back, and now we say people who are other incomes. But if you look very carefully at clause 4, 2B, clause 4A says the gross salary of an employee. That's okay. That is practical. That can be done. But when you say the gross income of a person received or accrued, which is not subject to the levy under paragraph A, that actually has two meanings. It may mean that for a person who is not salaried, that is what it may mean. But it may also mean that even if you are salaried and you have paid and you still have another income, that income will still be subject to that. Is that exactly what we mean in this bill? So that itself we have a problem with that. Then, when you have got that, and you then come to the allocation of this, you actually already have said who is going to do this in actually clause 6. So you say 30% is going to National Housing Corporation, 30% is going to Kenya Slum Upgraded Low Income, this 30%, and then 30% going to that. Now, you have a board for that. You have a board for this fund, but you have also distributed this fund to other institutions. These other institutions, if you go to clause 12 where there's a board, how is this board going to actually manage funds that are actually in other institutions which have their own boards? So that is defective. You can't set up a board, you say what the board is going to do, you say the functions of the board, and then the money that you are distributing to other institutions that have their own boards. So that is actually technically defective. If you come to eligibility, Mr. Speaker, okay, it says Kenyan over 18, and then you have to have proof of availability of deposit, which is 10% of the value. And then after that, you will apply, and if you are the agency, again, you have gone to the agencies, you apply to the agencies if you have a deposit of 10%. Now, if you are talking of affordable houses, and the other people who are not salaried, even the people who are salaried, if you're talking of Mamamboga, if these are the people you're talking about, the hustlers, and you said they need a deposit of 10%, already they are paying, and you've told them, and the leader of majority was saying that when they went out, people were very keen that we are even going to do it voluntarily. What they mean, if you didn't get that, is that they think that if they pay this, they are definitely going to get a house. I don't think people realize that you can pay this for years and you may never get a house. So if again now they are going to pay this 10%, and they've been paying that, and they are just going to pay back, that is difficult. And again you realize when you go to clause 38, you find that an eligible person may actually not be able to raise 10%. Then you say...
There's a point of order by the Majority Leader. It better be a point of order, Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, you know the Honorable Nyikal has invited me by referring to what I said in relation to public participation. But clearly, the Honorable Nyikal has not read what came out of that public participation in the committee's report, because all the issues he's speaking to, from eligibility, there are proposed amendments by the committee, including the question he's raising of 10% deposits, are things that are very well articulated in the committee's report if you go through it. Therefore, kindly, probably he would take some time off and read so that he understands where I was coming from when I said what I said of public participation.
You see, that is exactly, actually that's exactly my point. You have actually reminded me of another point why I actually reject this bill at this point. When the leader of majority was moving, even the second when they were moving, they did not discuss the bill. They were discussing the report, which means that to a large extent, without that report, this bill cannot pass. It makes it possible that by the time we go to amendments, there will be so many amendments that we may, just leader of majority, there may be so many amendments that we may actually think that this bill should be drafted again. So, Mr. Speaker.
Order, the Honorable Nyikal. It's Majority Leader. Order. The report is a report of the bill. So the report can't stand over the bill. The report is a report of the bill. And so I believe that the bill, the report informed the debate on the bill. So I don't want us to waste time on this. I would allow you to continue the debate.
Yes, I will.
Don't get distracted.
No, and I have actually even looked at the report. Even the format of the report, everyone is saying that we look at the report. First of all, it came late. We haven't had time to read it. But even when I've looked at it, you do not, as you normally would have in a report of this nature, a clear schedule of what amendments are proposed. What we have in this report is actually almost verbatim report. This is what they said. This is what the observation of the committee. So you don't actually, then you read the report, you don't clearly get it ends on page 190, and the only recommendation, committee recommendation, the committee having tendered the bill and the submissions from the members, the public and stakeholders, recommends that the House approve the bill with the amendments. Now, they are not, this is the report. So this is actually technically defective. So, Mr. Speaker, then we realize, as we have said, that people may not afford. We then bring that in clause 10, that a loan can also be made available. Now look at this bill. There is money you are paying. Then now you also want to take a loan. And you can also make a saving in the same. What structure shall we have for this fund? So the idea.
Allow him 20 seconds to finish.
I have the soft copy.
We then move to Jomvu.
You can't see.
We move to Jomvu.
Jomvu eh? Ha? Nitaongea hakuna shida. Haya, asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi hii ili kuweza na mimi kuchangia katika hili jambo. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza katika katiba yetu ya Kenya imeruhusu kuwa na haki ya makao. Alafu vile vile sisi kama Azimio pia ilikuwa ni moja ya ajenda yetu ambayo ilikuwa ni haki kwa watu waweze kupata makao. Kwa hivyo nikizungumza kama vile minority leader wetu Mheshimiwa Ndai alivyosema, haoni ni kwa nini, pia mimi naunga mkono kwa nini ilikuwa tuende haraka kwenye jambo hili. Kwa shauri Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo hili si kwa kuwa ni baya, liko katika katiba, liko katika ajenda yetu, na hivi sasa limeletwa ni sawa lakini namna vile ambavyo limeletwa ndilo ambalo mpaka iangaliwe. Kwa mfano, Mheshimiwa Spika, leo hii kule kwangu Mombasa kuna mahali ambapo mpango huu ulifanywa, hata rais akaja hapo. Leo mpango ule ulifanywa mahali kunaitwa Buxton. Buxton nyumba zilivunjwa na kulikuwa kuna watu wanaishi hapo. Mheshimiwa Spika, vile vile kukavunjwa nyumba kwa Mheshimiwa Mishi Likoni. Na juzi kwa masikitiko makubwa ya mzee wetu Omar Mwinyi alifiliwa na bibi yake, ndani ya wiki mbili akiwa anaomboleza, buldoza ya vunja nyumba za Changamwe za watu wake. Tukalani kitendo kile sana. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka kusema, ndugu yangu Owen Baya ambaye yuko hapa yajua Mombasa vizuri, kuna sehemu kama nilivyosema mwanzo kwa mpango huu haukuwa mbaya, lakini njia inavyofanywa ndio mbaya. Leo kwa nini kuvunjwa nyumba Pakistani? Kwa nini kuvunjwa nyumba Likoni? Kwa nini kuvunjwa nyumba Changamwe? Hali ya kuwa Jomvu kuna area kubwa ya serikali ambayo zamani ilikuwa ikitumiwa kama holding ground ya veterinary, ambapo nyumba zile zingekwenda jenga bila kusumbua watu. Ndugu yetu ama dadangu Irene Mayaka amezungumza hapa. Kwa nini serikali haikuweza kusimama?
The Honorable Badi.
Yes.
Do you want to be informed by the Honorable Minority Leader?
Huh?
Do you want to be informed by the Minority Leader?
Absolutely.
1 minute.
Mheshimiwa Wandaya ni inform kwa mara zote. Yeye ni kiongozi bwana. Asante.
Nilikuwa nataka tu
ruhusa nimempa anieleze.
Nilikuwa nataka tu kueleza rafiki yangu Mheshimiwa Badi Twalib Fula Ngenge, bunge wa Jomvu, ya kwamba nyumba mingi imebomolewa hata kule Kakamega County, katika constituency ya Lurambi, katika estate ya Milimani. Vile vile nyumba zimebomolewa katika kijiji cha Msambweni katika Voi constituency. Mimi mwenyewe nilikuwa na nafasi ya kufika mahala how do you call it? Mahala hapo. Na nikajionea mimi mwenyewe wananchi wakihangaika, wananchi wakifurishwa wakitolewa kwa nyumba zao. Hata hii ya Changamwe mimi mwenyewe nilizuru mahala hapo. Na kiongozi wangu Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga. Na nikasikitika sana.
I believe is informed by now.
Nikasikitika sana.
Asante sana. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Yes.
Order.
Usiniongezee, mtachukua time yangu jamaa.
The majority whip and majority leader, you will listen to Badi.
Mtachukua muda wangu sana. Nasema katika haya ambao mimi nasema nilisikitika sana, kwa sababu Jomvu na Changamwe ni kama mjomba na shangazi. Maeneo bunge yamepakana. Katika mpango huu, Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Omar Mwinyi ambaye ni mjumbe wa hapo, leo akiwa yuko katika maombolezi, watu wake wanakwenda wanavunjiwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo hilo alikuwa sawa. Lakini mimi nikiwa mjumbe wa Jomvu, nataka kusema kitendo kile tulikilani, kwa sababu si cha ubinadamu, hata kama alikuwa anataka kufanya jambo lolote. Kwa hivyo leo mimi imani yangu inanituma wale ambao walikuwa wakiishi kwenye nyumba hizo, ilikuwa badala ya kuwa wapangaji wakatiwe pesa polepole ili wawe wamiliki baadaye, kuliko kuvunjia watu katika sehemu ambazo pia zina shauku. Pakistani leo nyumba zimvunjwa, alafu akuta mwenye kufanya kazi, si ajabu pengine alichukua karatasi title deed ya pale ambao hakununua akapeleka benki akapata pesa na akaja akajenga manyumba yale. Mahali kwingine pia ni hivyo hivyo. Leo mimi nauliza pia Mheshimiwa Spika, 1.5% ama 1.5 kwa 100 ambayo watu wanakatiwa na waajiri. Watu wamekatiwa, hata wafanyikazi wangu mimi ofisini walikatiwa. Na leo nataka kusema kitu kimoja. Mheshimiwa Njendi pale amesema ati wakichelewa kidogo wanaambiwa wanapakatiwa 3%. Mimi nachukua sauti yangu leo. Mheshimiwa Spika, mara ya kwanza hii levy ilipokuwa imposed ama kuanzishwa, ofisi yangu ilikuwa haina operation cash. Wafanyikazi wangu walikuja mimi ni wakopeshe pesa ya housing levy. Ikiwa wao wafanya kazi na hali imekuwa ni vile, je, wale wengine ambao hawafanyi kazi, Mheshimiwa Spika, itakuwa katika hali gani? Kwa hivyo hali hii ni lazima iangaliwe, kwa sababu leo watu wanaambiwa wakatiwe pesa hizi, wanaambiwa tu kwa pamoja, ama kwa kizungu tunasema anakuwa generalized. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, anayekatiwa yuko mmoja ambaye hana loan na anayekatiwa yuko mwingine ana loan. Ana mzigo mkubwa. Hatuuangalii mzigo huu alionao anaukabili vipi, na sisi tunakwenda tunamkata hizo pesa. Maoni yangu ama mapendekezo yangu ni kwa kuwa pesa hizi ziwe ni kwa mwenye kutaka, ama kwa kizungu optional. Kwa sababu hivi inavyoendelea, kuna uwezekano wa watu wengine kukatwa wakapata nyumba, na watu wengine wakakatwa ikawa ni wengine kupanda kwenye migongo ya wengine kufaidi, na hali wengine wakati wao hawataweza kufaidi. Leo tuangalie, kunaambiwa hapa moja ya sheria mpaka uwe Mkenya. Dada yetu Irene Mayaka hapa anauliza swali moja. Yule anayetoka kutoka mashambani kabisa aje Pangani pale, ama aje Pakistani pale, ama ende pengine popote aseme mimi pia ni Mkenya nataka. Confusion hiyo ama mkengeuko huo ni wa aina gani? Aliyoko pale aachwe apewe mwingine. Kwa hivyo ina maana pia hata yule ambaye yuko mbali kitambo afikiwe, atakuwa shakufa, mwanawe na yeye anakatwa, amfika mjukuu wake akatwa, ndio watu wafikirie sasa. Mimi nataka kusema tuna mzigo mkubwa ambao ulikuwa mwanzo tu uangalie kabla kuangalia haya. Na mzigo huo tuna deni la SGR, tuna deni la expressway, tuna madeni kadha wa kadha ambao tuko nayo hapa ya Dongo Kundu. Leo Dongo Kundu, Mheshimiwa Kimani Ichung'Wa majority leader yuko hapa na alikuwa chamani wangu wa budget. Leo mimi niko katika kamati ya barabara. Twadaiwa bilioni 1 na kampuni inaitwa Fujita ambayo imejenga Dongo Kundu. Kwa nini 63 bilioni ambazo tumechukua kwa mambo ya housing levy ambayo hatujui itajenga nyumba gani wala nyumba gani, isiende mwanzo kulipa madeni ndio kisha wakaenda kuangalia yale mambo mengine watafanya namna gani? Na yaonekana Mheshimiwa nichunge ama ni protect Kimani Ichung'Wa nirushia maneno pale hivi na hayo.
Bwana Badi atamaliza mchango wake. Ningependa aimalize. Aya, tumpe basi kiongozi ya walio wengi dakika moja pia.
Unajua Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Badi Twalib asema ya kuwa tuna bilioni 63 ambazo hazijulikani zitajenga manyumba wapi. Mbona tusitumie hizo fedha kulipa madeni ya pending bills ya Fujita contractor ambaye anajenga barabara kwa eneo bunge lake huko Dongo Kundu? Lakini Mheshimiwa Badi Twalib ndiye alipitisha sheria hapa ya kusema kuwa hizi fedha za housing levy haziwezi tumika kwa mahitaji mengine yoyote, hata kulipa madeni, ila tu kazi ya ujenzi wa manyumba na mambo ambayo yanaambatana na ujenzi wa manyumba. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Badi asifanye Wakenya waamini ya kuwa mimi ndiye nimekataza ujenzi wa ama Fujita kulipwa. Na sijui ako na mambo gani na huyu Fujita. Pia kufuatia kanuni zetu, kanuni ya 90, atuambie amjuaje huyu Fujita. Mbona Fujita tu ndiye anamtetea alipwe?
Asante. Ningependa pia kuuliza kwamba unaweza ongea na Bwana Opiyo Wandayi atakwambia pending bills nini kwa Kiswahili. Uko na dakika 20 kumaliza mchango wako.
Mheshimiwa
20 seconds.
Mheshimiwa Spika, naomba kando na nafasi uniongezee dakika kidogo ambazo zimechukuliwa pia kwa kuwa nimetatizwa kidogo.
Uko na sekunde 30 kumaliza mchango wako.
Sawa. Sasa mimi nataka kusema kwanza sina interest ama jambo yoyote kati ya maneno yangu na Fujita. Hiyo ni maneno nimesema kwa sababu ndiyo hali ilivyo. Na nikiwa mwanakamati wa uchukuzi najua ni wapi tudaiwa, najua ni wapi hatujamaliza kazi, najua ni wapi hatujaweza kuendelea mbele. Mheshimiwa Spika, yatakikana kununua nyumba hizi utoe 10%. Ina maana kama ni milioni 5 uwe na 500,000 ambazo utatoa. Leo mama mboga na bodaboda 500,000 atoa wapi? Leo kitu kimoja ambacho mimi nataka kusema, hii naona ni ufisadi unakuja. Kwa ajili 500,000 mbunge milioni 5 kwake ni mswaki. Kwa hivyo 500,000 mbunge za kuchukua pesa akaenda keka deposit ya nyumba 10 kwa...
Katika hali hiyo ya Kiswahili tuende Likoni. Tuende Likoni tusikie. Tubaki kwa Kiswahili bado. Bwana Mugabe tunakuja kwako. Kiswahili bado kitawale kidogo. Muda wako inkwisha. Wakati huu ni wa Likoni.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to say from the onset, the issue of affordable housing is a noble initiative because our constitution talks about the right to shelter.
Lakini sasa mbona unaangusha? Nilifikiria tulikuwa pale Kiswahili bado.
Hai, basi ikiwa Speaker umetaka niongee Kiswahili, wacha nirudi kwa Kiswahili, lakini leo nilitaka kuongea Kiingereza.
Can use any language. Use any language.
Sasa Honorable Speaker, lazima time yangu iregeshwe vile ilivyokuwa. Manake naona nimepata some interruptions nyingi sana. Mheshimiwa Speaker, nataka niseme from the beginning, the issue of housing is a noble initiative because the constitutions talk about the right to shelter for Kenyans. But I want to say this idea was recklessly rushed. And that is why you see during the public participation, majority of Kenyans objected on this idea of paying housing levy. And again, that is why we had some negative ruling from our courts. I want to say, Honorable Speaker, if today I may ask whether we have a proper legal framework to ensure that there is proper accountability, transparency, and even the management of the housing levy. Because here we are talking about a big fund, a fund which needs to be monitored, a fund which needs a proper mechanism to ensure that there is proper oversight. And to me, I think we are not ready for that, and we don't have that right now. Honorable Speaker, in the bill I've seen that the CS is going to be given extra power to give some exemption to maybe to some persons or categories of persons, the way it's been written in the bill. So my question is, where is that detail to show who are these persons or categories of persons? Are we not leaving a loophole for the CS maybe to abuse his power so that maybe he can give his friends, his cronies, just in the pretext that it is in the clause that he can do some exemption? Honorable Speaker, I'm just looking on those people who are almost retiring. Maybe they have 2 or 5 years to retire, and they have done their contribution. And yet when they retire, it means they're not going to be able to contribute. What will happen to their contribution, or are they going to be eligible to be given the houses or not? That is another question. Honorable Speaker, I'm also looking, how are we going to identify the beneficiaries, those people who are going to be given those units? And I'm saying this because one of the members here has just said, maybe we could have thought and maybe put up a cluster or targets of persons, maybe those in the slums or those living under abject poverty. That could be another way of ensuring that those given those units are the right beneficiaries, rather than just living like that. And then some cartels will take advantage that they have godfathers, they have godmothers, they know who is who in that docket, and maybe they get the houses, they buy them, and then they resell it at a higher price to Kenyans, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm also thinking right now, that project has only kicked in few counties, and more so in only urban areas. So we are asking ourselves, what about the rural folk? Are they not Kenyans? Are they not going to be the beneficiaries? Because to me, only those within that counties where the projects have kicked are going to be the beneficiaries of this housing, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speakers, as a Kenyans, I'm just looking, for instance, in the long run, we keep on paying the levy, and someone just feels that, now I've paid so much, and I've not been given that house. Is there a mechanism where we can submit our complaints, we can put our appeals, so that we can get those houses, or we can be given back our monies, which you have paid through the housing levy, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, I'm feeling sick just to see how Kenyans are being evicted in a humane way. For instance, the Voi issue, more than 3,000 Kenyans were left in the cold just because land was needed for the housing project. Also in Changamwe, you saw what happened, because all of you saw in the television what happened in Changamwe, in Kakamega, and other parts in this country. So for me, I'm just asking, in that position that we want to empower Kenyans to have shelter, and yet again, we are destroying those shelters where Kenyans use their monies, they struggle, they take some mortgages, they took some loans to ensure that they had shelters for their families. Honorable Speaker, I think we need to go back in the drawing board and see how are we going to ensure this issue of affordable housing in a way that we are not hurting many Kenyans right now, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to say here, many days ago when we used to have municipality which now are the counties, they used to build affordable houses, and yet there was no housing levy. And people used to buy those, and there were so good installment schemes, whereby maybe you pay every month, you pay a little amount, and after a certain period of time, you get that house and you get the ownership of that home. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to say here as Kenyans, we need to debate this issue in a sober manner, so that all of us, we are going to be winners. We should have a winning situation. Yes, we need affordable housing for our Kenyans who live in the slums, who don't have shelters, and you know it is not right for a developing country like Kenya that we still don't have such a project. But here today, we cannot do it in a way that we are putting Kenyans in a tightrope. Today, so many Kenyans have taken mortgage. Many Kenyans' house is not a priority. They want to take their children to university, to colleges. Maybe they want to open up a business empire so that they can have income generating activity to have some fund. Because today, when we keep on putting taxation and taxes to Kenyans, it's not that we are empowering our country in terms of economic, because today, how many companies have closed today in this country just because of the issue of taxation? How many companies have sacked so many Kenyans because of the issue of taxation? So anytime we come with a noble idea, let us see what will be the legal framework, what will be the framework which is going to be employed so that it is a win situation to the government and to Kenyans. And again, the issue of land. We all know the categories of land. We have the national land, and we have also land which are vested under the county government. In terms of the issue of land, tomorrow somebody is going to say, this was a community land, this is a public land. How has it changed to be a private land after somebody has been given a unity of a home? So there are so many other issues in terms of the legal perspective, which we need to address them before we agree that we want to ensure that Kenyans have shelters in this country. Honorable Speaker, I'm also looking at the 2% money for administration. And to me, as a lay person, that is big money, because we are talking about big billions of money in the housing levy funds. And now you are taking 2% for administration. And you know, administration is only some few operations. So to me, I'm just like, where will be the surplus money going to be channeled? Where are we going to take that surplus money? Because if we just leave it, there'll be some cartels. And tomorrow, it will be a scandal after scandal because of that money. So before we agree in taking up and kicking up this project, or maybe passing this bill, let us have a bipartisan approach so that we can discuss, we can talk, and we can know the right way to take this matter so that Kenyans are not annoyed with us. Because today, you go to so many employees, those in the formal sectors, and look on their salary, it is zero. They don't have anything because everything has been deducted. There are so many deductions that most of Kenyans are getting depression now. Mental illness is rampant in this country. And you're asking why? It is because people are not believing what they're seeing. You are working a lot, but more than 60% goes to the government. And then you're saying, you're asking yourself, where am I taking to my family? What do I have as a result or as a balance from my salary, which I'm taking to my family? So, Honorable Speaker, I want to say, when we have good ideas, let us first talk, discuss it thoroughly, and get ways of ensuring that anytime we want to do something which is good and which is going to take this country to another level, without having so many rejection and negativity, let us talk and let us get the better way of ensuring that we have our noble ideas being employed. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Gembe South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Banjala, what's out of order?
Mr. Speaker. Yes, there is no quorum. There is no quorum.
I'll order that the quorum bell be rung for...
Mbona hawanipi niongee? Utakaa hapa mpaka saa ngapi? Wewe acha yako hiyo. There is no quorum.
I order that the quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes. Honorable members, let's proceed. Order. Sometimes I think we do things. I gave 6 members from this side in a row. 6. Without giving this side even a single person. 6. Without giving anybody this side. So I think let's be fair to all of us. So, so this, I order the bell. I order the bell to stop. I order the bell to stop so we can proceed. The honorable member for Igembe South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this bill. Honorable Speaker, I think once this project keep being postponed, Mr. Speaker, we will not develop this country. Bearing in mind that, Speaker, this is the third world country and a developing one, Mr. Speaker. So we should support this bill so that most of the Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, who are in need of jobs can be able to get jobs in the construction site, Mr. Speaker. Artisans and even mansion, Mr. Speaker, they will be privileged to get jobs in these constructions which are taking place across the country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I commend the committee for the public participation which they conducted across the country, one of its own, Mr. Speaker, because there was a claim that there was no enough public participation which was conducted, but this is one of the public participation which informs this bill or the support of this bill, Mr. Speaker, because most of the Kenyans who participated in this public participation, they proposed, Mr. Speaker, that there is a need of us passing this bill and the construction of these houses, Mr. Speaker, to continue. Because, Mr. Speaker, for example, here in Nairobi, we have very many slums. And these slums, Mr. Speaker, there is a need for them to be improved. And when you listen to the people from those areas or from the slums, Mr. Speaker, they are all in agreement that these affordable housing projects which are taking place in this country, Mr. Speaker, they are in agreement that the project to continue. So, Mr. Speaker, I do not see any need of opposing this bill, since the Kenyans themselves, Mr. Speaker, they are in agreement of this bill being implemented. I think the only worry of the Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, is whether the levy which is being charged from them, if it will be utilized well. And I think that is one of the reasons why this bill is here to ratify some of the law which was left hanging, Mr. Speaker, where the Kenyans were worried about the money which they are contributing. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill, and I urge also other members, Mr. Speaker, to support it. And maybe if there is anything to enrich this bill from our colleagues, also they can contribute so that at least we can enrich this bill and pass it so that Kenyans can benefit from this construction of houses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Marakwet West.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important bill. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this bill. You know, for the Honorable Speaker, for the reason that we are actualizing Article 43 of the Constitution on access to housing. Honorable Speaker, but the question we need to ask ourselves, how did we find ourselves that the court injuncted the affordable housing program for the reason that there was no proper legislation before the House? Honorable Speaker, when this matter was brought before the House, I raised a fundamental issue that there was no legal framework governing this particular affordable housing program. And Honorable Speaker, one of the fundamental issues that we must ask ourselves as members of this House is that party loyalty sometimes must not compromise oversight of members of parliament. So that, Honorable Speaker, any bill that comes or any program that comes to the House, we must rise up as members of parliament, as members of this House, and ask ourselves whether that particular program is anchored in a proper legislation. Honorable Speaker, we need not make a mistake in the future, because it is an embarrassment of monumental proportions if government programs are injuncted by the courts for lack of a proper legal and institutional framework. Honorable Speaker, there is someone failing government. There is someone failing government. How come we have a law, we have a program in this House that does not have a proper legal framework? Honorable Speaker, I raised here, so that we avoid this issue in the future. We have an Attorney General in this country who is the chief principal legal advisor of the government. The other day, he was saying he was not aware, he was never consulted. Honorable Speaker, that is shameful. It should never happen. Any law, any government program that comes before this House must be properly anchored in law. And we will stand up and we will tell the government the truth that there is a problem here. Like this, the issue of the housing program, we will not blame the president. The president had very good intentions, but a few people misadvised the House and brought a program that had no proper legal anchorage. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Likuyani.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I know you've asked me to summarize my 10-minute submission to 3 minutes. I will try. One is that I rise to oppose this bill for a number of reasons. One is that the bill tries to address issues of affordable housing which cannot be gainsaid. But then, when you look at it, is it addressing the root cause of affordability and availability of housing?